Hello. Just made it in time. How are you? Good. Hello. Greetings all. My name is Matt Carpenter. I helped found the CyPhy team here at GRIMM. GRIMM is a cybersecurity research firm with a heavy emphasis on reverse engineering and vulnerability research. The CyPhy team specifically focuses on the smaller things in life, those that don't typically have a keyboard and mouse, anything that's embedded that hits a lot of vehicles, including tractors. So embedded systems has had an impact in a wide variety of markets like tractors and satellites and aircraft and cars and heavy trucks. And those are important because, well, we'll get to that. So bear with me. I have had technical difficulties for the last 10, 15 minutes, and I'm having to use my phone here. Let me see who here is. There we go. All right, good. There's my team. I don't see them, but I see their names. So why don't I introduce myself? Why doesn't my team just say their names and one brief sentence? Starting with you, Tim, I like to pick on you.
My name is Tim Brom. I'm the technical director for the cyber physical systems team here at GRIMM.
Hi, I'm Morgan Whitlow. I'm a senior cyber physical security researcher at GRIMM. One brief sentence.
Thank you.
My name is Thomas Somerville, and I am a junior cyber physical security researcher here at GRIMM.
My name is Jamie Lightfoot. I'm a mid-level security researcher here at GRIMM. That leaves Aaron and Jesse.
I am Jesse Rowley. I'm a senior. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I'm Jesse Rowley. I'm a senior security researcher at GRIMM.
So Aaron, oh geez, really? I can't recognize you, Jesse.
That's the ID.
And that leaves Aaron, although Aaron seems to be having some technical difficulties right now. Not like Jesse's, where Jesse's are intentional. So this is going to be very free form. We are happy, we want participation from the audience. Bring your questions, bring your thoughts. I've got some seed questions, but I'll be watching the, actually somebody else will be watching the chat because I can't do that very well on my phone and see anybody.
All right, how is this?
We can hear you and see you.
Hooray, my technical difficulties are fixed. Anyway.
Your name, which is kind of already moot, and one brief sentence. Let's see how creative you can get.
Well, I'm not going to be very creative, sorry. I'm a senior security researcher here on the cyber physical systems team.
Excellent. Thank you. So that's the team. I know Jen is in the audience there. She's blending in, but she actually leads the entire CyPhy team and a lot of other things here at GRIMM. She's amazing. So we wanted to start off, and guys, if there are questions, please bounce something in chat because I won't be able to necessarily see it, or just speak up. But we have been spending the last 7 years hacking on vehicles. We started off with cars and we've gotten into a lot of heavy trucks. And then from there branched off into other things that bear similarities to heavy trucks, such as most of your tractors. Tractors are, in fact, if you were to tear them apart and put them on a board, you might be able to see the difference between a tractor and a heavy truck, but there's a lot of similarities. There'd be only a few telltale signs. So that leads actually to my first seed question, and this should hopefully get us started. But it's going to sound lame, but bear with me. What is a tractor? Audience participation included, but we have the experts here that I want to hear what they have to say.
Well, I guess I'll start off with my answer. Tractor is a modern tractor, I suppose, the ones that we're talking about, is a rolling industrial control plant.
Cool. A very time-sensitive rolling industrial control plant. You and I were chatting earlier. I remember hearing you say the time-sensitive.
I did forget about the time-sensitive part. Good point. Good addition.
Thanks. I came up with that myself. Anybody else? Let's dig into that a little bit. Any thoughts?
An industrial automotive piece of equipment designed for farming, for taking care of fields and harvesting plants and seeding and all of that good jazz.
Okay. What makes up a tractor? Maybe that's what makes a tractor, but what's a tractor like? More importantly, why do I care as a cybersecurity engineer or an attacker? Why do I care about a tractor?
The equipment that
Supply lines.
generates. I was going to say somebody else should probably take this. Actually, I've spoken already.
Go, Morgan. Sorry for the delay.
You first, Morgan.
Next.
I think we've got a little bit of lag here that's knocking us out of sync slightly.
Yep. Go ahead, Morgan.
Supply chain. Tractors are behind corn and a whole bunch, as we're at CornCon. Agricultural stuff, cotton, clothing stuff, all kinds of anything that deals with plants at a mass industrial scale. If that's disrupted, if that's held hostage, like via ransomware attack, it's a vital critical system that is got a very juicy attack surface through its equipment if it's not properly cared for.
Okay, very good. So that's the impacts. Jesse, go ahead.
The reason it's such an appealing target is because of the economic impact of attacking the equipment. Morgan touched on the ransomware side of it, but if you are a larger scale bad actor, you could be targeting it simply for the economic impact and the disruptions that would result from that supply chain attack, et cetera.
Okay. Aaron, I know you're busting at the seams, so say it anyway.
All right, sure. I mean, supply chain is obviously something we've seen very visible. Supply chain interruptions is something we've seen very visible in the past few years here. And that's just due to, pandemic and production issues. But in terms of tractors and agriculture, that's obviously on the supply side of things, and the supply chain interruption there could be very dramatic. Obviously, agriculture, farming, food production is a very time-sensitive thing. It has to be in the right exact geographic location for the equipment to do the right thing. You have to make sure that that different things happen on a very precise time schedule. The window for planting, for seeding, for harvesting can be very small, and also is impacted by the weather as well. So all of these things make it a thing that needs to be done on a precise schedule very quickly. And if you screw that up, then you've got disruption.
All right, I just got an audience question. What's a day in the life of a tractor hacker?
All right, so you want the audience to tell you what they think?
No, this was for the this is from the audience. This for
in the chat.
the
Okay.
experts here. Yeah.
It can be a lot of dirty work, taking things apart, getting to the physical systems in the tractor. As Matt mentioned earlier, a lot of the work that we do is on the physical computers in the tractor or the car or the truck, and seeing how they can be attacked, what attack surface they have. So there can be a lot of, spending time actually removing panels and taking these components out so we can analyze them more carefully and more thoroughly, tapping into the various communication networks on the vehicle that we're looking at and analyzing the bus traffic and seeing what attacks we can, you can go from there.
So what kind of communications technology do we find in tractors?
These days, pretty much all of it. There's mobile apps for phones to communicate with the individual telematics systems. There's LTE connections so that the individual devices in the field, be it a tractor or one of the connected appliances to the tractor, can communicate. There's GPS sensors. The buses are numerous.
Very good.
I could add on something else to the hacker question that you posed, Matt. If we, so GRIMM is a consultancy, and we usually have some kind of time limitation to our project. So we're trying to think of like, what is the impact that a customer or a company would be worried about, and then we try and find ways, at least in my case, the telematics units or other connected parts of a vehicle to try and reach that. So, maybe can I put bad firmware onto a tractor, or can I somehow get to the cloud and do that at scale? So what a day in the life of a tractor hacker or a car hacker or whatever is for us largely defined by kind of the worst case scenario supply chain or other issues, because that's what we're trying to mitigate against. There also is a lot of like curiosity in our team. There are a lot of interesting kind of weird corners in the technologies, but usually our work and what we dig into and the rabbit holes that we go down are largely motivated by kind of the impact that our customers or end users are worried about.
Yeah, our scrums would make most scrum masters have a conniption. Completely off the rails with creative discussion, but it's amazing. So how do you, if you were going to target a tractor in, say, Boise, Idaho, and you wanted to take over one tractor or all of the tractors of a particular type, what would you do? How would you go about that? What would that project look like?
Can I answer that?
Budget is not just, it's not a big option, but don't go insane. Yeah, go ahead.
So I would first identify the larger dealerships for the equipment I'm looking to target in the region, and I would do basic recon on who works there, who works in field service, how long they've been there, and I would most likely approach that with a phishing campaign to try to harvest some credentials to get access to the control panel that gives them observation over the entire fleet within their region. In terms of like, if the goal is to get all of the machines, then I would start with the place that likely has access to all of the machines, which is typically the dealer and repair network.
That is definitely a fun attack route.
I think maybe you should also add in that in addition to our scrums being full of curiosity, they're also really morbid. or maybe morbid's not the right word, kind of,
Grim.
Dark.
yeah, a little
Depressing.
I'd
Grim.
say for similar projects, we usually begin, or at least I've usually begun with the hardware. And you try and figure out how to get access on a single unit that you have, you know, in your hands. So that involves a lot of embedded systems and electrical engineering, hardware reverse engineering knowledge. And then once you get access on the processor, the computer running on that board, you can start to see, okay, here's the connected cloud service, here are vulnerabilities here, but you do need some kind of wireless connectivity or remote management capability to do attacks at scale, which is why when we work with customers to improve their security, we are always like focusing on the remote part. I'll let Morgan go.
Sorry. It always starts with research. Know your target, know what kind of system you're going after, know if it, like Jamie was saying, broadcasts anything wirelessly. Does it have an unsecured Wi-Fi access? Is there Bluetooth connection that you can join? Does it require any kind of pairing or a code, or is it just anyone can walk by and connect to it? Are there any default security measures in place? And if there are the credentials a common hard set thing that is known?
I guess I would add on one small piece to that, is that the strategy to go about, attacking a cyber physical system is essentially the same types of strategies that you would do in any type of attack. You start with recon, and then you kind of look for your attack surface, that's your scanning, and then, it goes from there. So the phases are effectively similar. It's just you have a different types of technology that you're potentially looking at.
Okay.
I'll add in that there is a point where our research kind of crosses over into your more traditional red teaming research, where while hardware and the firmware differ greatly from traditional OffSec, there comes a point where they do connect back to your traditional backend infrastructure, where your telematics units are being controlled and by a server hosted in AWS. Their communications
In the cloud
over just a bunch of API calls.
Great context. So how did you guys get to be here? Or more pointedly, how does somebody become like you, an embedded systems reverse engineer or exploiter?
I don't know
This is
that.
an
I don't
open-ended
think
to
any
all
of us
you.
got here the same way.
Yeah, I don't.
I think we all got here through a different path.
There's not really a singular way in right now. There's there's common paths in. A lot of us have like an engineering or computer science background, but I think that maybe something that that the hacking community has in common with other communities such as farming and agriculture is that there's a really strong DIY spirit. A lot of us didn't, I don't think any of us went to college for hacking and security. A lot of this was taking things apart that were broken, or maybe things that weren't broken, and we just wanted to know how it worked. In my case, I got into hardware reverse engineering because I had something that was broken. No one would give me the documentation on how it was supposed to work, so I took it apart and figured out how to get it working. And that turned into a useful job skill. So a lot of it is just DIY, trying to figure out how things work, trying to figure out how to make them work in a different way. And then all of us kind of stumbling into a career where you can actually get paid to take things apart and tinker with them.
Yeah, I tell people, so before I was officially a hacker, I did embedded software systems development, integration, testing. I made the different things that I'm now testing as a hacker. And I tell people that the skills for doing that embedded development and hacking are probably about, for embedded security hacking, cyber physical systems, it's, probably about 80% overlap. If you've ever had if you're doing development, you've ever had a customer say, here's this library we want to use, or we want to connect to this piece of equipment, then, and you've had to figure out how it actually works because it doesn't work the way the documentation says, then that's, you're on the same path, right? It's just being curious and figuring things out.
So, in my case, I actually did go to school and have some reverse engineering in school. There didn't anyone from a certain time period back got into the space completely through hacking and everything. That's where a lot of the stories you'll hear in the hacking career about, oh yeah, I got broke into like my school system or broke into XYZ computer type thing. That's where a lot of those, and then I eventually ended up in this. That's where the field started. These days, it is actually possible to go to school and take courses on things like network security, reverse engineering, digital forensics, all of that kind of thing. In my case, I was mostly going for development until I actually discovered through a hacking conference that reverse engineering was a thing. Actually, that's not completely accurate. My introduction to the fact that to reverse engineering as existence was a job interview where they didn't tell me what I was interviewing for. So I showed up and they started asking me all these questions, and I had enough background to sort of muddle my way through it and keep guessing things, but not quite enough to get the job. After that, they started mentoring me though, and it became oh, you mean I can actually try to break into and access these systems and not be the bad guy? Which was a lot of fun. And that started me down its whole other path. Although for the longest time I was doing lockpicking rather than direct RE. So that's a different story. Anyways.
Do we have any questions from the audience? We're getting into about almost halfway through. Love to hear from the audience. If you have any questions, speak up or go into chat. Dr. Johnson, is there some special magic they have to do, some incantation or animal they have to slaughter?
Wrong kind of farming. This is corn.
Okay.
We didn't hear you, Bryson.
All right, something fun we've hacked that we can talk about. Generically speaking, Jamie, I'm going to point to you. I'm going to throw that question in your lap. Tell me something that you've hacked.
I got to hack an ATM. So we got a ATM delivered and got to get some developer access to it and figure out if I were some kind of cyber criminal wanting to get a whole bunch of money, spit out money from the ATM sort of thing, how would we do it? We got to do a really cool demo of that.
Nice. What about some of the telematic stuff that you've hacked recently? Without names or specifics, obviously. But yeah, go ahead.
Without names or specifics, I'm not sure what I can say without names.
Okay.
Some of the things that we've been talking about, where you get access to a single board, a single PCB, and then you can get access to the cloud backend, and then you could hypothetically, use that one device that you bought off of eBay or wherever else to talk to other devices and find a lot of shared vulnerabilities between them and potentially take over multiple devices. We have found that, not in agriculture, but in another industry, which is fun. Doesn't really make me sleep great at night, but it's technically interesting.
Let me ask, is this why you didn't fly here? No.
see, I'll throw in. I was working on an embedded system not too long ago where they had checked all the boxes, and they shut off this. They did secure booting. They used encrypted file systems, which kind of baffled me for a while. And we got through that first barrier, and we got shell on the box, and then we uploaded. It was like a stripped down Linux distribution, but we were able to upload various tools like GDB to debug the running processes. And then they had encrypted file systems for all the goodies and stuff. And so, and they stored the keys inside the chips, secure area. But we were able to take the debugger and work through the code and say, okay, there are the keys that are stored in the internal systems, the HSM security module. Here's how this works. Oh, and by the way, before I even got to this point, they decrypted the file system for me, and there it is. It's like, okay. Jimmy, what are I've already picked on you enough. Aaron, what are some of the lessons that you would take away from the interesting things that you've hacked over the last several years in this space?
Let's see. Most interesting things I've hacked. Most interesting things are probably a bit more geeky than some of, I don't know how interested some of the audience is, because it's a lot of, here's a board running this particular architecture that we can't find any good tools to do reverse engineering on. And so it's, figuring out how to do reverse engineering and figure something out of that. As far as most interesting, it is lots of fun to be able to execute code from one ECU and then be able to pivot to, be loading implant on a different ECU on a vehicle and seeing what can be done with that. That's fun. Being able to affect the control systems of a vehicle at speed in ways it's not supposed to be. Those are interesting. I always try to do it safely, of course, but it's very interesting to be able to demonstrate that type of thing.
Very cool. Hey, Tim, what about you?
Drones are always fun.
Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah, the control system for drones, some of them are just fairly simple Wi-Fi access points. They don't really have much control or security on the link. So doing things like taking over a drone and flying it somewhere else is sometimes possible. Various manufacturers have gone to different lengths to secure that attack surface.
Indeed, from easy to hard, I understand. Any details in that which would be interesting to the audience?
I don't think there's anything much I can talk about.
Yeah, it does seem to be the sucky part of this.
Yeah, did you have Phil's question?
Phil asked about airplanes.
Have you worked on airplanes and in that industry? Anything that you can share without attribution or whatever? We don't care if you have attribution. That's your call. we like to hear the dirt, but
Aaron and Tim.
Yeah. So part of my background when I was doing development and creating systems is working and developing and testing aviation systems. So I've got a background in creating them. Also, we have done some testing of them, of some aerospace components. When it comes to security for aerospace things, it's, what's the best way to say this? when it comes to security of aviation systems, it depends a little bit on what the particular thing you're testing is. The attack surface is a little bit different. It's not like, it's within range of a great deal of the entire Earth for most of the time it's in operation, but when it's on the ground and when it's in maintenance, there's a little bit different attack surface. I don't know. It feels like about what I can say, I suppose.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's always interesting going from industry to industry, thinking about the differences and how the industries view themselves and what they see as being the threats and what they aren't really concerned about. Like aviation in particular, generally, especially in like the commercial airplane type, commercial type airplanes rely heavily on their physical access controls to the airplane. That you can't just walk out into the airport and walk up to an airplane and plug something into it. That there's not really a way for some unauthorized person to do that sort of thing to the point of possibly over reliance. Whereas in agriculture, it'd be fairly easy for somebody to do that to a tractor. They're usually not stored up in the store, just out in fields or out in a loafing shed or outside of the dealership.
And in terms of reconnaissance, aerospace presents some difficulties also, because it's a little bit trickier of a thing to, you can't just go on eBay and get an airplane like you can rent a car for looking into it.
There are junkyards, but they're harder to deal with.
They're harder to deal with. The components themselves are worth a lot more, even when an airplane is no longer in use, so they get repurposed and reused and sold off. So the reconnaissance part of reconnaissance and scanning is a little bit trickier unless you've got an actual, unless somebody with the equipment contacts you for doing the research.
And there's some that are available through various universities, but that's one model that you have to work through that university's rules of engagement, and it's not the same as being able to tear it apart and make the magic smoke go bye-bye a couple times. And yeah.
Right.
And
I guess I will. Oh.
You tell the audience that they shouldn't hack the airplane on the way home. They shouldn't try to flying, actually.
That is inadvisable. It's not advised. And it's also, if you do, don't tell anyone.
Don't tweet.
I don't want to know about it. But I guess one part of aerospace is that the concerns are about the same as any other industry that has computers controlling physical things, right? The concerns and the potential impact there's similar levels of concern and impact across all of these different industries. The biggest challenge is that there's access is one of the bigger challenges. Attitudes or the historical view of the industry in terms of their own security has it's not changed as quickly in aviation as it has in other industries. The aerospace village at DEF CON has been I think has done a really good job of kind of bringing this a little bit more into at least make it a little bit more accessible, put some resources out there and a little bit more than they have been in the past. Well, not a little bit, a lot more in the past. And then especially like the Hackasat CTF challenge, those have been fantastic for being able to get a view of some of the different, some of the view of the problem space in terms of aerospace security and hacking. It's obviously a bit of a satellite view instead of an airplane view, but the systems have a lot of similarities.
You bring up villages, it's a very good point. I know that GRIMM is involved in many of the villages, including the biohacking village, the aerospace village, the car hacking village, the ICS village, and I think I'm forgetting one other that we have invested people. We've also taken part in Hackasat, but why? Yes, this is a test. Why do we do that, guys?
Because it's fun.
Spreads awareness. Spreads awareness and helps spreads awareness and helps bring other people into the fold. So more people are looking at this. More people are learning how to do the same kind of things that we do. Also, more people who use these products or develop these products can be aware of some of the issues or some of the vulnerabilities, and they can head it off, not just in the existent products, but things that are to come.
We'll say for people who
And learning new stuff.
for people who aren't familiar with Villages, DEF CON, which is the big security conference out in Las Vegas, has Villages, which other conferences have now too, and they're all self-organized like mini conferences around a certain area. So there's the aerospace one, there's car hacking, there's a drone one, there's like a maritime one. Hopefully we'll see an agriculture one, you know, after this pandemic, hopefully. But all community organized, where individual hackers and specialists, and then their companies that support it come in and put together material to help spread awareness and recruit people into improving the security in whatever industry or area.
So there's an altruistic part of it, yeah, that I'm hearing, that we want to make the world a better place. There's a connection part of it. We want to get to know other people in the same headspace, and so much goodness can come from there. And there's an educational piece. Those are the three I've heard so far. Anything new?
Well, in
There
terms
is
of the,
Sorry,
oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, in terms of the educational piece, I think one important part of this is that in every single, I said there's a lot of different industries, right, that have these cyber physical systems security concerns. One of the biggest reasons for that is that the people who make the equipment in those different industries are experienced in, you know, they've got experience in the making their products in their industry. They don't have experience in the security concerns around adding different types of technology to them, like network connectivity and centralized server access. So in reality, they shouldn't need to have that experience either. You can't, it's not productive for most people making devices to have to be experts in everything to be able to make products. So that's part of the job that I see us in terms of security professionals, security researchers. Part of the job of the Villages, the more we're able to spread knowledge among the people who, at least a little bit of knowledge and experience among the people who make these devices, it helps to increase the awareness and increase and bring more higher levels of security to those different industries.
You, along with what Aaron was saying, but also Matt, you mentioned the altruistic aspects of it. There is also a certain level of enlightened self-interest. It's a great way to network with other people in the community. It's a way for us we get to learn a ton as well. We are the fount of all knowledge. We get to take in information about what's current in the field, new technologies that are coming out, letting other people know, hey, we exist, this is the kind of thing we do, let us help you, brings in good business. It's a very multifaceted thing, that Villages and outreach. It's got all kinds of altruistic reasons, and it's got all kinds of practical reasons.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So where do we see tractors and cyber going in the next 10 years? And is there anything that we can do to curtail the risk that is inherent in increasingly connected and intelligent tractors and vehicles? Is there an audience question that I missed here?
Yeah, there is.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Such as the food chain, how the tractor or the farm operator systems interact with the granulators and interact with the wholesalers and the retailers.
Hey, John, could you repeat that, please? I couldn't hear it. It was muffled.
Yeah, you want to come up here, and I don't know that I can remember all that you said. He was talking about emergent properties and systems of systems, but he's going to come up and ask the question. Phil's question was easier.
And
There's,
you could
what
state
about
your name and where you're from.
hacking airplanes? But all right, John, why don't you ask the question?
The question was, is the industry starting to look into vulnerabilities that emerge from systems of systems? So in the food chain industry, the whole farm to table, the tractor systems, the grain elevators, the wholesalers, the retailers, our researchers starting to look into the connection points and how vulnerabilities emerge when you have these systems developed by different people talking.
Connected with APIs and communication and all of that.
Sure. That is a really, really difficult question to answer because as an industry, each of the vendors have a different level of buy-in at the moment. So we're looking at it. Is industry? Wow, that's a really tough question to answer. Thank you for it. But we've gotten the sense that some vendors are a little more lackluster than others, and some are really interested. So take that for what it's worth.
So from a vulnerability standpoint, what about what do you look at in regards to the supply chain? Not the system of system communication, but just the supply chain being adding risk to the equation. All the different parts coming together.
Right. Yep. So yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to try not to open my mouth too much on it and let the rest of the team play. But yes, so what you've just identified is that there are really two significant ways that we need to think that we do, but that you need to think about vulnerabilities here. First of all, where do the parts come from in the supply chain? Where are the weak points and the ways to inject malicious code or hardware? And the other one is the system of system approach, where we have a tractor that can drive itself, but it's actually its connection to the cloud and its ability to potentially swarm that is a really much bigger existential threat. But anybody want to respond to those from the team?
So the interface between various systems. Oh, sorry.
Just the way that I think about the problem, at least as I understand it as described, is effectively when I look at an individual vendor or an individual platform of products within the agricultural space or really any space, I think of devices as a tactical problem, and the interop, between the devices and various components within the overall ecosystem as more of a strategic problem, right? A disruption at one point in the agricultural supply chain might be far more impactful than being able to hack a specific model of tractor during the specific time of year. So understanding where the biggest risk is and where the biggest impact could originate from is part of modeling the threat landscape at a higher level. Because of the nature of a lot of our work, we focus quite a bit on the tactical level, where it's how do we just secure an individual device or an individual suite of devices?
Yeah, what's the possible? That's the question that we answer.
Yeah,
anyone else?
We're about at our time. So yeah, if you have some concluding remarks, or if there's anybody who wasn't able to say something that they would like to get across, this would be the time to do that. We could keep talking about this, and hopefully you can attend in person next year. Things will be better. I know that the audience would love to have a chance to sit down with you. And this is a very interesting topic.
The question that I just threw out before, and we didn't get a chance to answer: where do we see the tractor space and agricultural and cyber in 10 years? And what do we need to do now to try to avoid getting to, and I could insert a number of different references, but I'll just say Skynet of tractors.
How do
Good
we see
reference.
that? How do we see the devices? I think I lost a word there. How do we see the industry moving, or what do we do to secure it?
What do we do to secure it? Where do we see it going? I mean, we've already seen swarms becoming the next direction.
Right.
Farms are just going to get smarter and smarter. Tech is going to seep deeper and deeper into just about every aspect of the operation. Smarter tools give lower costs, lower labor. But if you don't know how to use them, they become their own kind of vulnerability that people aren't used to dealing with.
I think there's a really interesting opportunity in the ag space because you're not operating vehicles in the presence of civilians for the most part. And so there's a lot more opportunity to be bleeding edge as far as automation, the being able to have different types of tractors or subsystems operate in tandem together in a field. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because you get to do some really cool stuff. You get to make some really good progress as far as the intersection between tech and agriculture, but also because it's disconnected from the larger population at whole, you don't get as much attention on it as far as security goes, right? People may not really think it's as big of a deal to worry about it because it doesn't immediately impact someone's life, but people don't realize the supply chain issues that, you know, having a humidity controller in your silo connected to AWS that isn't properly secured could mean that someone playing the futures market could destroy a large portion of a crop across the nation in one fell swoop just to make a profit, and then people go hungry. And I think it's really interesting to see this start to develop and to see different vendors care different amounts is also pretty interesting to watch.
And one of the things that, I mean, it's not reasonable to expect a farmer to have a cybersecurity expert on staff to maintain their fleet of tractors. That doesn't sound at all reasonable. So as an industry, a lot of times the big guys and the vendors have to take the hit for the smaller guys. But you know,
Yeah.
GRIMM is here to help support.
Did you buy a computer you couldn't
space.
log into? You couldn't put a password on? Why would you do that with your farming equipment? It's what makes you your profit.
Well, and I think, was it Morgan that made the comment about interfaces, or started to? When you, and we have to, we'll conclude after this, but I just want to make the comment that as they are systems of systems, like John said, that we have let's say it's a tractor. Let's say you have a truck that follows along, and there's a communication. There's some signal between that and the truck, and it's not from the same manufacturer. And now you have a sensor that comes from a third party that's with humidity, and maybe you're pulling in agronomic data from different sources. And so, you know, it really becomes lots of things communicating together. And every time you have those interfaces, there's an opportunity for them to be exploited.
Yep.
So I think
Exactly what I was trying to get to.
there's going to be more of that, I think, in the future, with wanting to have this be more functional by having it play with other toys, right? So the risk is going to continue to go up, and I think it's really important. I'll try to wrap up here. I want to thank you for joining us. This is an important topic, and it's important to have researchers like you out there who are digging into this and staying on top of the technology.
Thank you for bringing it to the forefront through CornCon, Dr. Johnson. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for your time today, and it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
The audience is, you
Thank
got a
you.
standing ovation here. You can't see them, but there's a standing ovation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.